Hello there my friends, you're listening to Ebird Online and I'm back with another review. And what does the Ebird have for you today? Well, unfortunately, it's another very sad tale. Because back at Mike's house, the hills are alive with the sound of disappointment. We have an old saying in England, in for a penny, in for a pound. And I think Mike, being, how can I say, a frugal sort of chap, decided, I've spent so much on this K1 visa, let's just bring Natalie over and see, although I'm not sure. But what he should have been thinking is get out whilst the going's good. Yes, that's right, it's that time. I'm going to be talking to you about Natalie and Mike once again. Before we begin, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and if you enjoy the video, please don't forget to press the like button, it does do wonders for my analytics, and follow me on Twitter at Ebird Online. So without further ado, I give you Mike and Natalie. So we first catch up with this couple and they're at home, and Natalie's laying on the bed. Natalie tells us she thought couples therapy would help, but instead Michael just said he doesn't love her anymore. So she's decided to see a counsellor on her own. So she's doing an online counselling session with somebody called Rachel, and Rachel asks, what do you want to talk about today? And Natalie says, I need relationship help. I'm here from the Ukraine, but we have problems. I want to trust Mike, but I'm finding it very difficult. And so as soon as I heard this, I thought, what do you mean you want to trust him but you find it difficult? What are you talking about? And then I realised. Natalie tells Rachel, I'm still processing something that happened a while ago. Oh my god, you mean still bollocking on about the past? Natalie, the past has just rang. It wants you to freaking forget about it. And so what Natalie's alluding to, yet again, is this old story about Mike and his good friend, and the fact that she thinks Mike cheated on her. So this is what happened. Mike was going to a wedding of one of his friends, Sarah, and Mike was acting as her best man. He went out on the night before the wedding with Sarah, and he was supposed to stay at his aunt and uncle's house, who apparently live in the same town. When Natalie rang in the morning, Mike picked up the phone and he was laying on the sofa, apparently half naked, and she heard a woman say in the background, I'm just going to take a shower, and Natalie thinks this is highly suspicious. And one of the main problems with this story is Mike said her husband was going to be there that night, but it turned out he stayed elsewhere. And so Natalie thinks this is sus. I've got my own thoughts on the whole scenario, which I'll go into a little bit later, but Natalie tells Rachel, I still feel betrayed. And she tells Rachel that they used to live together, and Rachel said, did they have a relationship before or not? And Natalie said he never admits that they were dating. Natalie. It's not that he never admits if they were dating, he always says they've only been friends. He tells you they're like brother and sister, so it's not he never admits if they were dating, he denies it, he says they weren't. And apparently they lived together for 2 years. And Rachel says if they had a relationship previously, then I would feel very, very uncomfortable about it. And it makes it even more inappropriate if that is the case. And she tells Natalie, you've got to talk to Mike about this. Oh, she has, ad nauseum. And Natalie says, thank you so much for your very good advice. And then she tells production, she made me feel as if I'm right. And she made me feel far more confident. I just wondered to myself if Natalie feels shortchanged by the mere fact that she's paying for advice that your best mate would have given you for free. But hey ho. So where do I stand on this whole thing? I understand that there's a difference between cultures. I think America's very like the UK, in that you can have friends of the opposite sex and it's not massively strange, whereas apparently in Russia and in the Baltic states it's far less socially acceptable, so I accept that, and I think it must have been a shock for Natalie. However, on the other hand, this happened absolutely ages ago, this whole Mike and Sarah situation. Since then, he's been to the Ukraine for 2 weeks, he's come back home, you've talked about it multiple times, and now you've come to live in the US with Mike, with a view to getting married and starting a family. If you really genuinely don't believe it and you think you can't get over it, forget it, finish it, go back home. But Mike's denying it lock, stock and barrel. Really, I don't know what you expect to happen at this point. He's been denying it for years now, at least 2 years that I know of. So the situation is what it is. So I see it like this. I don't believe that Mike did anything, and I'm doing this in a kind of Judge Judy-esque way, in that I've got no real evidence other than what I see before me. But although I know I said Mike's passive aggressive and he's got some bad traits, I don't really see him as an out and out liar. I think in good faith he slept at his friend's house. She said herself he was stoned and lying on the sofa. Well, if he was stoned, that's probably why he didn't go back to his aunt and uncle's house. Also, he was on the sofa. I kind of think if something happened, they'd more than likely be in the bed. Mike wasn't in control of whether her husband-to-be was going to be at the house or not, and traditionally, as we know, the night before the wedding, you do not spend together. So to me, that's quite unsurprising. Also, if he was up to anything, I don't think he'd have answered the phone. Or if he did, he would have put his top on, sat up, got the bed sheets out of the way, and answered the phone as if, yeah, I'm just sitting on the sofa. Why would he answer the phone in a state of undress and still stoned if he'd just finished cheating on you? I just think the whole scenario is extremely unlikely. And then finally, if Mike really had feelings for this woman, he had 2 whole years of living with her to try and act upon it. Also, why would this woman's husband-to-be allow Mike to be the best man at the wedding, knowing that they dated previously? It's exceedingly unlikely. So if I look at all these constituent parts, I draw the conclusion that Mike didn't do anything. But however, there are only 2 people that know, Mike and Sarah. But then having said all of that, if it were my partner, oh my lord, there'd be hell to pay. Why? Because that's just what we do. We think nice and rationally when it's somebody else's relationship, but when it's our own relationship, there's no such thing as logic, just feelings and intuition. I don't know why I'm laughing so much, I don't. And so Natalie goes and sits with Mike in the living room. And she sits on the sofa opposite and gives him the evil eye. And Natalie says, I want to ask you something about Sarah. And Mike said, what? And she said, were you honest when you said you were only friends? And Mike said, yes. And then he said, oh my god, why does she have to bring this up so much? I've tried to reassure her. She's like a sister to me and I'm like a brother to her. Guys, I hope it's not flowers in the attic. And Natalie said, you lie about a lot of things. And Mike said, I did not lie to you. And Natalie said, I don't lie, and I don't cheat, and I don't get stoned and wake up half naked. You've betrayed me. And like I said, that's as maybe. But Natalie, you will never know. You need to just put this down because he's saying he didn't do it. You can't prove otherwise. What do you expect to get from this? And Natalie said, we can connect to her. Let's call her. And guys, the messy biatch in me low-key wants that to happen. But alas, it would be completely pointless because this Sarah now is married to somebody else. She's hardly going to say, oh yeah, Mike and I shagged the night before I got married. So really, Natalie, there is nothing to gain from this. Nothing whatsoever. Guys, oh my god. Guys, I've just thought of something. Is that Maury, whatever his name is, still on? Maybe. Let's force Mike to do a lie detector test. That would solve it. Guys, that's the one. Natalie, you need friends like the Ebird. But I digress. Mike started in on a rant. He said I can't even order from a waitress in a restaurant because you'll get mad. You're extremely jealous. You're the most jealous person I know. Why? And Natalie said, I was never jealous with my ex-husband. Which one, Natalie? We've heard there's more than one. And then Natalie said, I'm far more beautiful than you. And Mike said, your beauty is ugly. Woo! Mike got real deep real quick. And Mike said, I don't understand you at all. We are both physically right here, but you don't want to work on me and you want to look at the past. Now guys, I've been looking at what people are saying on social media, and people are saying that Mike's saying all of this to try and deflect, but I feel like Mike and Natalie have had this conversation a lot of times. And like I say, whether Mike's guilty or not, Mike is sticking to his story. So I don't really know that he's got any reason to deflect. He's just pointing out, Natalie, you're insecure for some strange reason. And sidebar, I know the reason that Natalie's insecure is because she doesn't have a ring back, and Mike knows he's playing on it. But anyway, Mike tells production she keeps going on and on about this situation. If she can't trust me, then I don't know. And then Mike said to Natalie, we don't fit together. I don't think you even like me. Mike, I think you got something there, I really do. And then he said, I'm not ready to marry you at all. And finally, Mike's got off the fence. He's stopped with his passive aggressive shit. And he's finally said exactly what he thinks. Even his, I'm not in love with you anymore, last week was a little bit, we're not in love with each other anymore. It still wasn't a definitive statement from Mike himself. But I like this new Mike because Natalie knows exactly where she stands. He says, I'm not ready to marry you. And then Natalie does what Natalie does best. She decides to read something else into it. She said, Mike's saying either you forget about what happened there or there's no marriage. It's a sneaky way to get out of the situation. He'll never admit it. Natalie, he won't ever admit it because I don't think he really did it. Why would you admit something when you're innocent? Only a fool would say they're guilty when they're not. Then Natalie said, if he would just come clean and admit it, I would forgive him, but I don't think he'll do it. Natalie, He can't, you're talking in riddles now. He can't come clean about something that he says he hasn't done. You have no real evidence to the contrary. All you can do going forward is to say, I never want you to stay at somebody's house. They're of the opposite sex again, and that's the most you can do. And the next time we see this couple, they're at the beach, and I'm not quite sure if this is a lake or an estuary. I'm guessing actually it's an estuary because you can kind of see where there's a tide going in and out, but incidentally, it's absolutely beautiful. It's quite funny that these guys are talking about, where should we get married? Here's where you get married. Absolutely here, it's beautiful. Even on this semi-grey day, it's still absolutely stunning. Mike's extremely lucky to live there. And so as they walk along the beach, Natalie's bollocking on about communication and trust issues once again, and she wants to go back to the counsellor. And Mike said, what for? And Natalie said, so that we can learn to trust and communicate better. Well, Natalie, it's you that doesn't trust him. I don't think there's anything more that Mike can do now, in the moment, to make you trust him. What happened was an old event. All he can do now is promise never to stay out and stay at somebody else's house again, which I'm sure he doesn't. Now, for some reason, I don't get liar from Mike. I honestly I see him as being quite trustworthy and just quite straight. I just don't think he's lying about this. Let me know in comments down below if you think Mike's truthful or if you think Mike's a liar. I would actually be quite interested to know your take on it. But then Natalie looks at Mike with a quite childlike look. And she said, can you help me move past Mike? And Mike said, tell me how. And Natalie said, I want back my ring. Oh God, and here we have it. So I knew there was something behind this whole dragging up of this event yet again. And now I know what it is. Gollum wants her bloody ring back. And honestly guys, I'm beginning to realise that all roads lead to this bloody ring. She wanted to go to the counsellor just for the bloody ring. And now all of this week has all been about getting that ring back. Natalie, if you say he's a liar and you don't trust him, what do you want the ring for? Who would want the ring of a liar? Who would want to marry a liar? Who would want a child with a liar? Nobody. There we bloody have it. Natalie's got a one-track mind for this ring. Mike said no. Mike, good for you. And Natalie said, so I'm not engaged. And Mike said, at this moment, I just don't feel like you should have your ring back. And Natalie tells production, Mike's only doing it to punish her and to manipulate her, and it's not okay. And Natalie said, if I've got no ring, why do I cook, clean, and make love to you? And Mike said, you sound as if you're a slave. And Natalie said, well, yeah, it looks like. And she said, I'm a toy in your hands. Natalie, you're really not. Toys are fun. Although it does sometimes seem like Mattel did your makeup. Every day you tell me I'm not ready to marry you. It's not fair. How am I supposed to feel? How would you feel if it was you? I would never do this to you. And then she breaks down in tears. And although I do feel sorry for Natalie because I know that without this ring she is in turmoil, the whole thing is of your own making. Since you've been back, you haven't had one good week. You haven't had one normal interaction from what I've seen. So if Mike gives you back the ring, he's tacitly saying, right, we're ready to get married. Let's go ahead. So him not doing it is actually a benefit to you because at least you're not being really led down the garden path. And Natalie tells producers she feels used, she feels miserable, and she feels insecure. She doesn't know what to do, and she said maybe I'll just go home. Maybe she will. Let's see. And that's where we leave things for this week. So what does the Ebird make of all of this? Guys, I honestly think the whole thing is another ruse to try and get her hands on that ring. Every week she comes up with something new to get her hands back on the ring that she herself launched. So Natalie wants to know, why did Mike want her to come to the US if he didn't plan to marry her? Mike wanted to see if it could work. Obviously you had good times before, then you had bad times, and when he left the Ukraine, remember you were sitting in the back of the taxi saying, Mike is great, everybody loves Mike, Mummy loves Mike, everyone loves Mike. You were absolutely taking the piss out of him. You didn't take the relationship seriously. When he got home, you refused to ring him for weeks on end. Once your visa came through, it was all changed, and suddenly you expect him to be jumping for joy and saying, yay! Natalie, when you rang Mike to say, the visa's here, did Mike look happy? No, he didn't. Did you notice? Yes, you did. Did you care? No, you didn't, because you had a focus of getting to the US. And you know it. The second thing is, Natalie, you threw the ring in the first place. Had you never done that, you might not be in the situation that you're in at the moment. And another thing about Natalie is, when she spoke to Rachel earlier, and she more or less said, Rachel's backed me up, I feel confident now. Rachel didn't back you up. You led her to believe that Mike hadn't really said whether or not he was in a relationship with Sarah. No, Mike denied it. You didn't tell her the full story. And had you told her the full story, I don't think she'd have said what she said. And I feel like Natalie's trying to manipulate Mike with the only thing that she really has on him, and that's this situation. Fair enough, we've talked before about Mike's house not being the greatest and, you know, so on and so forth. But Natalie, you always go on and on saying, I've moved from Ukraine, I've ripped my whole life apart to be here. But you wanted to. That's what you wanted. That was a choice that you made. And also, while we're at it, I know that you knew very well that he lived in the middle of a wood. I don't believe somebody as sharp and as intelligent as Natalie is, 110 IQ no less, didn't ask Mike before you went to live with him, let me see a picture of where you live, let me see the surroundings. You knew very well where you were going. You would have been on Google Earth and you would have seen everything you needed to see. You still went. And if you didn't do that, then more fool you. So yeah, that's it. I think this whole so-called cheating scenario isn't proven by any stretch of the imagination. And Natalie, you have to make a choice now. You have to decide, am I going to put it to bed or will I keep banging on about it? If you think it's really true, the truth be told, you should definitely keep it pushing. We have accused Mike of being passive aggressive previously, but I feel like in this episode he dealt with everything head on. He answered all questions. I don't think he was that evasive. I think he was straight up, and Natalie knows exactly where she stands. He's not ready yet to marry her. He wants to wait and see how things pan out. As you know, I think this relationship is a lost cause, but all Natalie can do now is to just act normally, get on with Mike, have fun, stop the mood swings, stop the moaning, and try and see if you can make this work. And if that happens for the next 2 or 3 weeks, then maybe he'll want to marry you and give you the ring back, who knows? Does Mike hold all the cards? Kind of. But you gave them to him, Natalie. It was of your doing. So let me know what you think in comments down below, and I'll be back very soon with another video. And just before you go, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and please don't forget to press the like button if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Ebird Online, and I bid you good day.